Neshan. Remy Cordova was accused of trying to impress gang members when he fired at Pamela Cabriales' car.
Been on his way home from a soccer game when the gunfire shattered the night. At first, he wasn't paying much attention. His music was up, drowning out the usual city noise.
It was just after 10:45 p.m. on a cold night in Denver. A minor tap happened at a red light on Colfax Avenue, but what followed was anything but minor. Then a door swung open and a 14-year-old stepped out, an AR-15 in his hand. Without warning, he fired 15, maybe 20 shots, glass shattered, and bullets tore through a woman's car. Inside was Pamela Cabriales, a mother. She slumped over, bleeding, her life shattered in an instant, and days later, she died. At his sentencing, the boy said, "I cannot take responsibility for something I did not do." But someone pulled the trigger. Someone stole a mother's future. So who was he? Why did it happen? And how did a teenager get his hands on an assault rifle that night? This is their story. But before we begin, I just want to take a moment to thank you, my incredible viewers and subscribers. Your likes, shares, and thoughtful comments don't just support this channel, they help keep these stories alive. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and become part of this growing community that believes every story deserves to be told and no victim should ever be forgotten. Now, let's get into it. Jaden was driving nearby when she first heard the noise. At first, she thought it might be fireworks, something harmless and routine. But the sounds kept coming, louder and closer, and her heart began to race.
Started.
Pop, 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 pop. At first, it didn't register what was happening until the cars in the 2 lanes next to me started going.
She ducked instinctively, pressing down on the steering wheel, trying to make herself small. The cars around her started to move forward, but she stayed low, her eyes catching brief glimpses of the scene ahead.
And then I realized, I said, oh shit, something's happening, and I ducked down, and several more happened. And I pulled next to the car, barely got a glance. It looked as though the window was either rolled down or shot out, but I believe that the window was out. I didn't look at the windshield or see inside the vehicle.
She saw the passenger side of a car, windows shattered or rolled down, though she couldn't make out who was inside. The street was chaotic in slow motion. Jaden counted the shots as they rang out, 5 or 7 at first, then a pause, then 3 more. Each one jolted her, the sharp crack cutting through the night like gunfire should.
I'm gonna call it 5 to 7.
Then you said you ducked down and heard several more pops. How many more do you think you heard?
Perhaps 3.
The adrenaline surged, and fear began to sink in, slow and creeping. Meanwhile, Alex Martinez was just a few blocks away, heading home from a soccer game. His music was loud, but the sudden flashes of light caught his attention. At first, he thought it was streetlights or fireworks too, but then the sharp bursts followed, snapping him back to reality.
His music was up, drowning out the usual city noise. But then, flashes of light. His stomach dropped. That wasn't streetlights. That wasn't fireworks.
I did not physically see the weapon.
Okay.
I seen the light from when you shoot the gun, and you have the light and the sound.
Okay.
So that's what I heard.
He pulled his hoodie tighter and looked around. When he saw the shooter, a figure barely visible but distinct enough to catch the side of his forehead, Alex's stomach dropped.
When he got out, he had his hoodie on, and he turned to face towards north, and all I see is the side of his forehead, so literally right here.
The boy stood near a car, lifted his arm, and the flashes repeated 6 times. Alex didn't see the weapon clearly, but he knew what it was. The sound was unmistakable. The shooter was quick, firing into the car before slipping back into the vehicle and speeding away. Other witnesses heard the gunfire too, but their memories were fragmented, snippets of sounds, flashes, and hurried movement. Together, these pieces formed a picture of confusion and terror. No one expected the quiet night to end like this. And as the shots faded into silence, the reality settled in. Someone had been hit. Someone's life was about to change forever. When the police arrived on Colfax Avenue, they found Pamela Cabriale slumped over in her Range Rover, bleeding heavily from multiple gunshot wounds.
Okay? I'm Officer Lipper with the Denver Police Department, okay?
Her body was still, but her chest rose and fell with shallow, labored breaths. The sight was grim. Her face was torn by the violence she had endured just moments before. Officers moved quickly, cutting her seatbelt and pressing down on her wounds, desperate to slow the bleeding.
Here, I'm just going to keep some pressure on him, okay? Yeah. Hey, she took quite a few, about 4 or 5 rounds to the face.
How many? Is just she the only victim?
She's the only victim.
They called for paramedics, their voices steady but urgent, knowing every second mattered. Pamela's injuries were severe. Bullets had shattered the windshield, leaving at least 8 holes, and pierced through the windows, turning glass into jagged shards.
Just about ready.
I counted 8 shots.
8?
Yeah, there's one right above the left windshield wiper. So that's 2 out of, like right there.
License plate, that's probably hers.
That's the same one as on the back.
Okay, that's probably hers.
The rear window was blown out completely, and the front was scarred with damage. Bullet fragments littered the car, each telling a story of the assault that had just taken place.
Is that her birth? Yeah, I'm trying to find an ID.
Is there more than anybody else?
No, it's just one person. Could you hold that open while I look through it, please?
As paramedics arrived, they worked swiftly, loading her onto a stretcher and rushing her toward the ambulance. Despite their efforts, the gravity of her condition was clear. She was fighting for her life. While the medical teams worked, officers searched the vehicle for identification. They sifted through a purse, hoping to find a name, any name that could bring clarity to the chaos. Soon, they found it. Pamela Cabriales. Her name brought a sudden weight to the scene. She was not just a victim, she was a mother, a daughter, a real estate agent with a young son waiting for her at home. However, the investigation took a sudden turn the very next day when police spotted a dark Honda traveling north on South Federal Boulevard. This wasn't just any car, it matched the description from a shooting at a McDonald's just hours before Pamela Cabriales was shot. The vehicle was familiar to officers. It had already been linked to gunfire and chaos. When officers activated their lights and sirens, the Honda didn't stop. Instead, it sped away, kicking off a tense chase through Denver's streets. The driver pushed the car hard, swerving and racing as if running from fate itself. But the chase wouldn't last long. The Honda crashed violently into a wooden pole, then slammed into a fire hydrant, knocking it off its base. It barreled through a chain-link fence before finally coming to a stop in a quiet residential front yard. 3 young men spilled from the car and sprinted down the sidewalks, desperate to disappear into the shadows. Police quickly set up a perimeter, cutting off escape routes. SWAT teams arrived, and K-9 units joined the search, their dogs sniffing for any trace of the suspects. Surveillance cameras nearby caught the suspects' frantic flight, showing 2 of them running down a sidewalk before doubling back the other way. The men tried to hide in a nearby shed, hoping to evade capture. But it was no use. Officers found the 3 hiding inside, and within minutes, all were in custody. During the search, police uncovered 2 AR-15 rifles, powerful assault weapons linked to the shootings. Ammunition was scattered inside the car and the shed, with live rounds and shell casings matching those found at the crime scenes. The evidence was mounting. The Honda and its occupants were connected not just to Pamela Cabriales' murder, but also to earlier acts of violence. What started as a quiet night had turned into a manhunt and arrests that would shake Denver's streets and change lives forever. Then they were taken for interrogation. The interrogation rooms were cold and stark, but the weight of the case made the atmosphere heavier than any physical discomfort could. The police knew they were dealing with something serious, a shooting that had taken a mother's life, and now they had 3 young suspects in custody. First was Remy Cordova, the 14-year-old who stood accused of pulling the trigger. His mother sat beside him during the questioning, her presence a shield, sometimes protective, sometimes obstructive.
I'm going to advise you of your rights, and then I'm going to leave the room, and you two need to talk about whether or not you want to talk about this investigation or not. Okay?
She interrupted the officers on several occasions, cutting short lines of questioning, her voice thick with worry and denial. Remy himself was mostly silent. He refused to admit any involvement in the shooting, choosing his words carefully or simply declining to answer.
It's totally different. Yeah.
Are you guys done talking?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn the video back on, okay?
Yes, sir. Do you have my phone number?
Then the next was Neshan Johnson. Neshan Johnson sat alone in the interrogation room, his eyes darting nervously around the sterile walls. From the moment the questioning began, it was clear he was trying to keep control, but the story he told kept slipping through his fingers. He started by denying any involvement in the shooting. "I wasn't there for none of that," he said flatly. But when detectives asked about his whereabouts earlier that evening, his timeline wavered. First, he claimed he'd been hanging out with family, then shifted to saying he was at his aunt's house, then that he was picked up by a friend. The hours blurred. When pressed about why he fled the police during the car chase, Neshan admitted quietly, almost as if it were a secret, "I don't have a driver's license." That simple fact explained his fear of getting caught, but it also exposed his motive for running.
Why? Tell me more about why you didn't stop.
Cause I don't have no driver's license, I ain't gonna lie, that's the only thing. If I had a driver's license, I'd pulled over. But I don't have no driver's license, so...
The detective wasn't about to let him distance himself from the rest of the story so easily.
It's on the side of you. As you're driving, you make the turn, hit the curb, they light you up, you decide not to stop. When you notice the police, who notices them first, you or the other 2 guys in the car?
To be honest, we all did, because they was right next to us.
Tell me more about the conversation going on in the car about the 5-0 being next to you.
And we was just like, police right next to us. I was like, I'm going home.
Okay.
He was asked about the conversation in the car that night.
Lil Roe or the guy in the car talk about being on one, or being that they had a heater in the car, or being concerned about the police bumping you guys up with anything in the car?
Nah, see, they didn't tell me trying to worry about nothing. They was like, big bro, cool, you feel me? They was like, I guess they were trying to hide it from... Cause I get on their ass, you feel me? If y'all doing something stupid, you feel me? Come to my house, nigga. We could eat food, treat, whatever y'all want. Y'all could come to my house. Y'all don't have to do no dumb, you feel me? Cause nigga, I just got through done doing that. Group home, foster home, so I don't want to be done in and out of jail. Nigga, I got 2 kids. I got 2 little girls, so nigga, anybody younger than me, I take them under my wing and I try to show them anything better.
Okay.
And they know if they tell me anything stupid, I'm gonna go off on them. So that's probably the reason why they didn't tell me nothing, whatever they did.
Okay.
Before they came, cause I've been on their ass, and then I would even got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are y'all doing?
Okay.
Like, come on, cuz I'm mad they put me in a predicament like this anyway. Like, nigga, don't put me in no predicament like that. But
so
Neshan.
Then the detective hit even harder.
1 minute when you see the police, and then you go, you crash, you get out, you dip, and you go to the shed, you say by yourself, right?
yeah.
Anybody give you anything before you got out of the car?
No.
Anybody ask you to hold anything?
Neshan.
Do you know why I'm asking all these questions? Because the shed you were found in, those shell casings match at our murder scene. Can you explain that to me? And you said nobody's in the shed with you. Okay? You're in there by yourself. But the same caliber shell casing that's in the shed where you're at is the same caliber at our murder scene. Can you explain that to me if nobody handed you anything?
No, nobody handed me nothing.
Okay, so how did that end up in the shed with you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I ain't gonna cut it.
I don't know.
Okay.
This was the time to be honest, otherwise every evidence was stacked against him.
Okay. So it's one of two things. Either you were there at that murder scene, or somebody gave you something to hold on to. So now's your chance to help yourself. Don't dig yourself a hole. You got one foot in this hole right now, Neshan. Okay?
Now he had to decide if he would stick to his story or open up.
Yeah, nothing. You feel me? And guys left the shed.
I'm sorry, he did what?
He went in the shed with me, you feel me? He came in the shed with me and him. But then after that, Cuz left, you feel me? That's why I was the only in there, because he was like, "Bro, police in here, Cuz. Bro, they about to come in here." And then he left, and I wasn't finna just, because he wasn't going nowhere.
Okay.
So I stayed in there.
Right.
On everything. He came in there with me. He dropped all the shells. And then after that, Cuz was like, "Bro, police, bro," and freaked out and left.
The detective.
Then he had to answer on what he thought the other person with him was doing.
Tell me nothing on everything. He was, when we got in there, I was like hearing pennies. Like I thought it was pennies at first, because I didn't know what it was in his hand. And I was like, "Bro, stop." I was like, "Bro, stop before police come in or something, or they hear you." I was like, "Alright, bro." And I didn't realize it was shells on there until police flashed the light. You feel me? But I thought it was something else, like he was playing with pennies or something.
Okay.
But I was like, "Bro, stop. Like, bro, stop playing with that, bro." He was like, "Bro, it's my fault, bro." And then after that, nigga, when the police came, nigga, they were shells. So, then again, I think he dropped the shells and knew the police were finna come in and just leave. You feel me? Because he didn't tell me he was leaving, because I swear to God, I took a nap. I took a nap, and then when I heard, like, the dog, I woke up and I stood up. And the dog smelled me, passed me by. Cause that's what really tripped me out, when the dog just smelled me and just left. I was like, what the?
The white boy hadn't just hidden in the shed with Neshan. He'd brought something with him. At the time, Neshan thought he was just fiddling with coins, maybe pennies, but looking back now, he realized they were shell casings. The detectives didn't say a word. They let the silence stretch as Neshan started to connect the dots himself. First, he claimed he was alone in the shed. Then, someone else had been there. At first, no one gave him anything. Now, maybe something had been left behind. He said he was just sitting there now. He said he took a nap. He was found when the K9 unit sniffed him out, and now his story was shifting faster than he could hold it together. The detective saw it happening in real time. Neshan was unraveling, caught between what he wanted to say and what the evidence was already revealing. Then, suddenly, another detail surfaced. Where earlier he denied any weapons, now he remembered someone mentioning a gun. And the truth, whether he was ready for it or not, was closing in.
Guns. Did they ever talk about the heaters they had?
Nah, they had a gun in the back seat.
Tell me about that.
But I don't know what type of gun it was.
That's okay.
Tell me about that. "We got a gun in the back seat." I was like,
hold on. Who said that?
The white dude in the back. He was like, "I got the gun in the back seat." And I was like, "That's cool for you." And I kept driving. Like, I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was
just trying to, I got
this gun in the back seat.
This gun in the back seat.
And that's when I, like, right when we was at the light.
Is this when the 50 pulls up or before? So tell me more about that. How does that conversation come up?
I walked in.
After several rounds of questioning, it became clear to the detectives that they had reached a wall with Neshan. He wasn't confessing, but he wasn't exactly consistent either. His version of events kept shifting, bending under pressure, never quite settling. If they were going to get clarity, they had to look elsewhere. So they turned their attention to the next person, the third teen in the car, often referred to as the white boy. If Neshan was finally being honest about something, then maybe this kid held more of the missing pieces. Maybe his story could connect the dots. Since he was a minor, his interview took place with his mother and stepfather in the room. Unlike Remy and Neshan, who had both denied involvement, this teen didn't dance around the question, and when asked about what happened that night, he opened up. He admitted he was there, right in the back seat, behind Remy Cordova, just feet away from the AR-15 that would tear through Pamela Cabriales' windshield moments later. He said they were just cruising down Colfax when it happened. The car behind them tapped the bumper, just a minor bump, not even enough to leave a dent, but that's when everything changed. According to him, Remy turned to the driver and asked, "Can I shoot?" And the driver, Neshan Johnson, didn't say no. "Do what you gotta do," was the reply, and Remy got out.
Tonight, or what happened last night? Can you take me through that, just from the beginning there? Who you were with, what was going on?
I was with my friends.
Okay.
He was driving. Right down on 25, whatever. And then we stopped, and then the car hit us in the back, smacked us. And my friend in the front, he asked the person in the driver's seat if he could shoot at him. And he got down and started shooting him.
Okay.
The boy said he watched as Remy pulled the rifle out, stepped into the street, and aimed directly at the car behind them. He fired fast. 7 shots, maybe more. The kid didn't know the exact number, just that the sound was deafening, and the flashes lit up the night like fireworks. But this wasn't any celebration. Remy slid back into the car, leaned out the passenger window, and fired 2 more rounds. Casual, controlled, then told them to drive. The boy claimed he yelled at him, "What are you doing? Get in!" But by then, it was too late.
Did you get out of the car?
No, I told him to get back in the car.
Okay. And what does he do? Tell me more about that.
He just kept shooting, and then he finally got back in.
Okay.
After I started yelling at his head.
Okay, how many times did he shoot?
He lit off like 7 rounds.
Okay.
He said he never got out and he never touched the gun, though later, when pressed, he admitted to pushing it away with his hand. It had been close, resting near his leg in the back seat, and he just wanted it out of the way.
Saturday night, baby mama's house, driving up before you fell asleep. Did you ever handle that AR? Meaning hold it, touch it?
No.
If I print it, am I going to find your fingerprints or your DNA on that gun?
No.
Okay.
I didn't handle that gun.
Okay.
I might have pushed it over, but I was not handling that gun.
Okay.
It was Remy, that's his gun.
All right.
He claimed he didn't think much of it at the time, but he would later admit, yes, his prints were probably on the stock. Yes, he knew there were guns in the car, but no, he didn't pull the trigger.
What part would you have touched so I know?
Like on the top, like
on the stock, they call it the stock on the top?
Right here, like, and then like right here, like
okay.
Next to the trigger, like, you know the little piece that comes down like this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like right there, because I had to move it away from me. I pushed it over.
Okay.
And that's where my prints would be.
Okay.
After the shooting, he said they drove for a while, then he fell asleep.
No, I don't know exactly where we went to his auntie's house, but we went down Colfax.
How far?
Like we just went straight down until when we got to like Union.
Okay. And then what do you do?
That's when we went to his auntie's house.
Okay. Where does the auntie live?
I low-key don't remember. I was sleeping.
Okay. Were you asleep when you pulled up?
Yeah.
That's the part he repeated more than once, that he was sleeping when the police started tailing them.
Discussion in the car about what just happened.
They don't even say nothing. They're not even talking.
Okay. At any point, even after Auntie's house, do you guys talk about this?
No, because I got woken up to getting yelled at. The cops are chasing us.
Okay.
And then that's when we crashed.
He mentioned that he was jolted awake by Remy yelling that the cops were behind them.
Asleep. Because you know how many people sat in that chair and told me the same thing you're telling me? Because I don't believe you. Okay.
I never felt like I really fell asleep.
Well, I find it hard to believe you
when
just.
When we was at his auntie's house, I really fell asleep. Like,
okay.
I was just laying down in the back with a blanket, slumped.
So you've just witnessed a shooting that's turned into a homicide, and you're tell me now you've fallen asleep. I know you didn't, but my point is somebody shot with an AR-15, a high-power rifle, and you're telling me within an hour after, within 30 minutes, you fall asleep?
I really did fall asleep. Like,
okay.
For real, I really for real. Like, okay. I really did fall asleep in the back.
Okay.
And then they woke me up saying the cops were behind us.
Who's they?
Remy and Rashawn.
Okay. Did you ask them to stop?
Huh?
Did you ask them to
Yes,
stop?
I was like, bro, why are you going so fast? He was just going fast.
Tell me more about that.
And he just going fast, and he just smacking everything in his way. And then we get to the main street, and we go down. It's a hill. Boom, pothole. Flip up. I hit my head, and then I don't remember it. I just hopped out.
Okay.
Like, all I know is I just started like flying around in the car, hitting my head on everything.
All right.
He remembered the crash, a loud jolt, the car flying up after hitting a pothole, then landing hard. They slammed into a pole, a hydrant, and a fence. Then came the panic. He said the others took off running fast, but he didn't. He jogged, he claimed, said he didn't know what Remy had really done, said he thought Remy was aiming at the car's engine, not the person inside. Still, he ran and he ended up in someone's backyard, not a shed. At least that's what he insisted.
Or the driver?
Yeah, the driver.
Tell me about that.
I met him when I was walking. I saw him in an alleyway.
Okay. Where was he?
He was in that little alleyway where he was just in an alleyway, and I just saw him walking.
Okay. Where did you guys go?
I kept walking. I was just like, there's cops all throughout the block. Like,
Well, he tells me that he's with you.
he said that to you.
Yeah. Okay. So, he says you guys weren't in the alleyway. Where were you guys?
We was in an alleyway.
Okay.
That's where I saw him first, but then after that, we went out of the alleyway into the neighborhood.
Okay, tell me more about going in the neighborhood.
We started walking through the neighborhood.
Okay, where do you go?
I don't know over there in Lakewood, but we were just walking around the blocks, and we just seen there was cops on every single block.
Okay. Where were you found?
I was found in an alleyway.
Okay. In what?
It's the alleyway. I was just walking down the alleyway, and they told me to freeze and get on my knees.
Let me get to the point. Were you in a shed? Yes or no?
No.
Never in a shed?
No, I wasn't in the shed. I might have been in someone's backyard, but I was not in the shed.
Okay, if you were in a backyard, who were you with?
I was with the driver.
Okay. What'd you and the driver discuss?
We didn't discuss nothing. I was just like, bro, I'm not finna get in trouble for this. And I just walked out the alleyway. I was like, I do not care. Like, bro, I didn't do shit.
Okay.
But what am I getting in trouble for? For y'all doing it.
Okay. And I apologize about earlier about the hypothermia. That's not you. That's my fault. Okay. So I apologize about that. Okay.
Because I was like, because we're standing in the backyard, and I'm like, bro, you sound dumb if you think we're gonna get away. There's cops on every single block. You sound stupid. So I'm like, he stays there in the backyard. I'm like, all right, bro, peace out. I walk out of an alleyway. They got me.
Okay.
I didn't do nothing, so I'm gonna be like, all right.
Then the investigator stepped out and the mum couldn't hold it anymore. But he wasn't just a witness. He was in that car. He sat behind the shooter. He moved the gun. He picked up ammo. He didn't pull the trigger, but he never tried to stop the one who did.
Best you can. Why do you leave? Why do you walk off? Why don't you stay outside the car when the police show up? Why do you walk off?
Because I thought I was gonna get in trouble for the guns. The gun was right next to me.
Okay.
The AR-15 was on the left of me, like I told you. Remy put it in the back, and then that's when I moved it over to the left of me.
Okay.
So I was not trying to get in trouble for two guns that was in the car, and they was gonna leave me.
Okay.
They was gonna leave me. They already ran.
Okay.
So whether he fired or not, he was part of it.
Any casings, any live rounds did you pick up or have on your person or in your possession?
I found some 22s on the floor, and I picked them up and put them in my pocket.
Tell me more about that.
That's it. I found some.
Okay. What'd you do with them?
I put it in my pocket.
And then what'd you do with them?
Nothing. They were just in my pocket.
Okay. Did you ever see the driver, or you're calling Neshan, did you ever see him with any ammunition or any spent shell casings? You know what spent shell casings are?
Like, after you done shooting?
Mm-hmm.
I think I had the 223s.
Huh?
I had the 223s from the AR-15.
Who did?
Rashawn.
Why
it
did
was
he?
all through the car.
Okay.
And I guess some of them landed on him.
Okay. Did you have any?
But Neshan had claimed that he had casings.
He said I had them?
Yes.
He's lying. I never had that.
Okay.
I never had no shell casing that was empty.
Okay.
I only had those little 22s that I found on the ground.
And when the bullets hit Pamela Cabriales and her body fell limp behind the wheel, he was still there. The interrogation had come to an end. In the end, the truth surfaced slowly, fragmented and inconsistent. The teen's story was full of holes, and the detectives saw right through them. But one thing was undeniable. Remy Cordova was the one who pulled the trigger that night, ending Pamela Cabriales' life in a flash. Later, prosecutors would reveal his motive. He was trying to earn status within the gang. The courtroom was packed the day Remy Cordova went to trial. He was just 14 years old at the time of the shooting, but the brutality of the crime had forced the legal system to take a different path. This wasn't going to be handled in juvenile court. The case was transferred to adult court because what happened on Colfax Avenue wasn't an accident. It was an execution. Cordova faced several charges: first-degree murder for killing Pamela Cabriales, attempted first-degree murder for the driver behind her who narrowly escaped being hit, and additional counts of criminal attempt. The weight of it all rested on the jury now. Prosecutors argued that Cordova's motive was as cold as it was calculated. He wanted to earn rank in a local gang. They pointed to his own words, his bragging about the AR-15 being his toy, and how rising through gang ranks meant proving you weren't afraid to take a life. And Remy had done just that. The defense leaned into his age and background, describing a traumatic childhood, neglect, instability. But those details couldn't change what had happened. Not the 20 bullets fired into an SUV, not the mother who never made it home. The jury deliberated, and then the verdict came down. Cordova was found guilty on all counts. Some reports noted that one of the murder counts was downgraded to second degree with extreme indifference, but it changed little. The message was clear. The jury believed he pulled the trigger, and they believed he knew exactly what he was doing. At sentencing, the judge handed down life in prison with the possibility of parole, but not until Cordova served 40 years, and that was just for the murder charge. A consecutive sentence was added for the attempted murder of a second driver who was also at the scene. He'd be a man in his 50s before he'd even be considered for release, if ever. But he still claimed innocence.
Cordova said it was another teenager in the car who pulled the trigger. He told the court he will appeal his conviction.
I'm not the monster or the murderer that I have been painted to be by the Denver's district.
Outside the courtroom, after a long day of sentencing was over, the family of Pamela Cabriales was remembering a 32-year-old mother who shared love and caring.
We love her. We look forward to one day being with her.
Brother Alex Cabriales had done his best to explain to the court what his sister meant to those around her.
She was the example of what love and kindness.
Meanwhile, Neshan Johnson, the driver that night, faced his own reckoning in court. He was found guilty in 2023 of multiple charges, including second-degree murder, attempted manslaughter, and vehicular eluding. The judge rejected an earlier plea deal, calling the terms too lenient. Johnson was ultimately sentenced to 35 years in prison, with an additional 14 years of parole to follow. As for the third passenger, the boy who admitted he saw everything unfold, he wasn't charged in Pamela's death. His cooperation helped prosecutors piece the timeline together, but his involvement wasn't enough to tie him directly to the shooting. The courtroom battles were over, but the consequences stretched far beyond the sentences, because no matter how many years were handed down, none of them could bring Pamela Cabriales back.
We should be in this world.
The family and friends of Pamela Cabriales paid tribute. Her shattered mother delivered her message in her native Spanish, saying, "Our lives have changed drastically. I'm always crying."
Pamela Cabriales wasn't just a name in a case file or a headline in the news. She was a devoted mother, a hard-working real estate agent, a sister, a daughter, a friend. And for those who loved her, life divided sharply into two halves. before February 20th, 2021, and after. Her brother, Alex Cabriales, spoke often and openly about who Pamela was. She had just bought her first home, was building a future for her 6-year-old son, Leo, and did everything with one goal in mind, giving him a better life. She lived for her son, Alex said through tears. She did everything for him. But all of that was stolen the night she was shot in cold blood while simply driving home from dinner, and that loss didn't just hit her family, it shattered them. Their mother, Irma Cabriales, said the violence didn't just take her daughter, it left an open wound in their family that hasn't healed. She spoke about how it feels like the world is getting worse, how people keep fighting and killing each other, and nothing seems to change.
It was more than just my sister. She was loving, she was kind, she was the heartbeat of our family.
Her brother Alex and her mom Irma said time hasn't made it any easier.
But what hurt even more was knowing that the system may have had a chance to stop it. Before Pamela was killed, Remy Cordova had already been in and out of court 3 separate times. He had prior charges involving guns, but each time he was released. Alex was blunt about it. "My sister would still be alive if they had just kept him in," he said. "He should have never been out. He had guns, he was dangerous, and they let him go." He's since advocated for a bill that would change the rules, allowing judges in specific high-risk juvenile cases to be held accountable when repeated leniency leads to tragedy. He believes judges should be subject to civil lawsuits or disbarment in extreme circumstances like his sister's case. The grief hasn't let up, and the family has lived through this kind of heartbreak before. In 1994, Pamela and Alex's 15-year-old brother, Noel Cabriales, was killed in another senseless act of violence, this time over a dispute involving a dog. It's a trauma that repeats, a cycle they've been forced to survive twice. And now, there's Leo, Pamela's son, who was only 6 years old when he lost his mother. She was everything to him, and now she's gone. A GoFundMe was started in her honor, raising nearly $70,000 to help send Leo to college one day. It's more than just a fund, it's a symbol of the community trying to step in and support a child whose life was forever altered by someone else's decision. The family has talked about the stages of grief, how they've cycled through anger, denial, sadness, and still feel stuck in between. They've struggled with the weight of explaining to Leo what happened, how to make sense of a world where his mother is no longer in it. Sometimes it's the questions that linger the longest. Why did it happen? And what made a 14-year-old want to fire an assault rifle into a stranger's car? So, what do you think about this case, and if this case moved you? If you want to learn more stories told with care and clarity, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep telling the truth behind the headlines.